Hi everyone, my name is Collier Rice. I'm the instructor for this course, which is Art History 270, Art, Identity, Politics, Issues of Representation in Contemporary Art. Hopefully all of you received my introductory email and found your way to the first module. I assume you have since you're viewing this. This introductory video it's kind of like the first day of a class, where everyone comes and the instructor goes over the syllabus, tells you what the topic is, what your responsibilities as a student are, how to navigate the course. In that introductory email, I let everyone know that this is one of the first times through for me on a large level in an online course. And so even before we get started, I want to reiterate something I said in that introductory email, which is, I want to make this the best course it can possibly be. And I'm new to online course, both content and delivery. So anytime along the way, if you have a suggestion that will help make this course better, just send me an email or come see me in my office if you happen to be on campus. And let's make this as good of a experience as it can be. So, with that being said, let's go through the syllabus, which is what you see on the screen to the right. My face is over there on the left, of course. Again, I am recording these lectures with my little talking head over there, but you can minimize that, I believe, at any time and just listen to my voice and look at the images that will be a key component of this class. So then first, the basics. If you need to get in contact with me, you can do that through Canvas, or you'll see over here my email address to contact me that way. If you happen to be on campus as well, my office hours this quarter are Monday and Wednesday from 10 to 11 a.m. I can also be reached via appointment if that's important to you. We'll probably have a few times throughout the quarter where I will make myself available face-to-face so that anyone who's on campus and wants to meet with me, probably as a group, can do that as well. So the course description, and just read this over together with one another. The course is designed to introduce participants, that's you, to various ways contemporary artists and art movements, primarily in the United States, have explored the intersection of visual representation, identity, gender, whether it be, gender, ethnic, racial, sexual identity, and politics or power. This is one of the most persistent themes in art since the 1960s. You will all be able to work your way through the sequences of materials that are organized into weekly modules on Canvas according to your own schedules and with a great degree of flexibility. In a few cases where there's a fixed time that you'll need to adhere to, I'll make sure that I give you multiple time slots so that you can participate as fits your schedule. The majority of the course content beyond the readings will be delivered to you through a series of these types of Panopto video lectures. We're going to explore the way that artists have contested dominant representations of gender, sexuality, race, and ethnicity, as well as other minority subjectivities, which is a specialized term that we'll get to about 3 weeks into the quarter, and how artists have also proposed alternatives for the representation of these constituencies. In that introductory email, I took you through how a module will be set up, and I'm going to return to that in a moment. Required readings. There is no text for this course. It would be great if there were, because it would allow a kind of thread to run through those readings. That may be difficult for some because these are readings that have been selected from a number of different sources, and their cohesive kind of drawing together will be my lectures. Otherwise, they may seem like little case studies on each individual subject as we get to them. And as I said before, sometimes that can be difficult. Nice textbooks can create a narrative that links one thing to another in the readings themselves. Those readings will be found in each module, which is organized by each week. And you know, as you plug into those modules, you'll just see them. They're PDF files there. All of the readings, or the vast majority of readings, will have introductions, a little video that tells you what those readings are about and how to take them, as well as some reading guides that pose additional questions that I'd like you to be thinking about, so as to have you know, particular topics highlighted for us and really guide you into the topics that I think are most important in those readings. Student responsibilities. So there will be pretty equally spaced throughout the quarter 3 quizzes. They will each be worth about 15% of your overall grade, so together 45% total. Each quiz will be essay-based. They will require that you write short answers and longer essays on topics covered primarily in the video lectures, but also, of course, the readings. These are all open note quizzes. You may return to the lectures and readings when composing your answers. Each quiz will only cover the topics for that approximately 3-week section of the course. In other words, they're not comprehensive. These quizzes are graded on a 100-point scale. In addition to that, every week you'll have an assignment that is a summary or reflective essay on the reading assignments in particular. This is to ensure that participants have a strong comprehension of key ideas from the course readings, and it will allow me to offer feedback. Each week, students will write these summary reflective essays. I will provide you with 2 guides for these informal essays. First, you will get a specific, if you know, in some ways, general prompt for each weekly summary reflective reading. You will see that in the second module. Second, you can refer to the reading guides or even answer the questions in the reading guides as you compose your essays. These essays are graded on a 10-point scale. Again, some of these things that I'm talking about will make more sense as we go along, and I will certainly give you more specific information about what you're expected. I will also be giving you a lot of feedback to make sure that you are doing what I want you to do and hopefully engaging with these materials. The third component of your evaluation or grade are participations in weekly discussion forums. Again, the topics of this course lend themselves to rich discussion and manifold perspectives. Candidly, this is often difficult to achieve in an online course where we're not looking at each other and talking to each other face to face. My hope is that you'll engage with each other respectfully and thoughtfully in the weekly online discussion forums. Each week, I will provide you with specific topics, ideas, and issues raised in the lectures and readings. Each student will be required to make 1 post in the discussion forum before the end of the day on Wednesdays. This is important for keeping the ball rolling, so to speak, in the course. If you wait too long to post those initial postings in the discussion forum, no one can respond to them, right? So let's get those done by the end of the day on Wednesdays. And then once you've posted, you will be able to see other students' posts. And from that, you're required to respond to at least one of these posts from another student by the end of the day on Fridays. You're welcome and encouraged to post and respond to as many posts as you desire. Your posts and responses will be graded on a 10-point scale. So then, on to the course outline and schedule. You will find specific prompts for the assignments listed below on Canvas. Over here, look at week number 1. This is where we are right now. Introduction, setting the stage for the course. Module 1, week 1. It's an introduction to the course and overview of assignments. What you're looking at here in this video is listed as number 1, the Panopto video lecture. In each module, there will be at least 1 video lecture, most often 2 or 3, kind of broken up into easily consumable bites. You know, a 45-minute lecture should be about the most lengthy of all the lectures. This is so that you can, again, work this into your own schedule. In addition to that, in module number 1, you see that you have a discussion forum. This discussion forum was referenced in the email that I sent you. I would like you to write a brief personal bio and reflection on your sense of identity and post this so that others can see who is in the course with them, and so that you can begin to think about what identity is, why it's important, what your own sense of identity is, of course, and how this intersects with questions about, for instance, your race or ethnicity, your sexuality, your gender, and many other factors, of course, that go into the construction of identity. If we look down below that at module number 2, which is also in week number 1, week number 1 is the only week that has 2 modules in it, you will see our first content lecture. This content lecture, which you can go on to after this introductory lecture and after you post your bio, is a brief backdrop into questions about representation itself and an overview of how woman and femininity have been represented historically in Western culture. Below that, in this module, you'll see your assignments. You view the lecture. You can view this lecture before or after you've done the readings. You will, of course, read the readings, looking at the reading guides to guide you, and then, in the end, write a reading summary and reflection on this. Up here in the left-hand side, you'll see the readings listed. This first group of readings, don't let it scare you. There's a lot going on here, and when you, of course, open this module, you will get the reading guides, and you'll get a little brief introductory video from me telling you what all of these are. So I won't do a lot of that here, but what I will say is that, right off the bat, these readings cover a lot of really important kind of foundational ideas before we even enter the course. Brian Wallace's excerpt for What's Wrong with This Picture, an introduction, has to do with the question of what representations are. What is a representation? How is identity a form of representation? How are visual representations especially important to the production and management of identity or subjectivities? Below that, John Berger's Chapter 3 from Ways of Seeing from 1972 introduces you to some of the ways that women have been represented historically in Western art, particularly the question of the female nude. Now, the reason I've chosen this reading is that it is a nice kind of introductory reading to these questions, and it gives us some backdrop into how gender has been constructed in visual representations. It is also important because the first generation of feminist artists in the United States were fighting against these forms of representations in their own art and proposing alternatives to this. Below that, you see Jean Robertson and Craig McDaniel's chapter on identity from themes in contemporary art, a more recent writing. This is a broad overview of the topics of this course. Don't let it scare you. There's a lot going on in this reading. You're not going to be asked to write anything on this. I would like you to read this over, jot down your ideas about this, just as again, a foundational type of reading that will introduce you to many of the themes that this class will cover in detail once we get to them in the course of the quarter. Below that, you see key terms from David Macy's The Penguin Dictionary of Critical Theory. Just browse this and use it as needed throughout the quarter. It has a lot of terminology into it that many of you may be unfamiliar with. This is a good kind of primary source for getting a definition of some of these key terms. You can, of course, also look up these key terms by Googling them. Even Wikipedia is a useful kind of starting source for thinking about these terms. And then, of course, the big terms as they turn up over the course of the quarter are things that I will be defining as well in relation to the visual representations of the artists that we're covering. In just about every module for every week, there are also optional readings. These are just there for you. These are things that extend the ideas of that weekly module even further. So if you come across ideas that are particularly interesting to you, you might want to do the optional reading. Again, they're optional. So if you've got time for it, if the subject is of great interest to you, plug into those. Now let's just go through very kind of briefly the overview of the course. After this introduction to the question of gender and its visual representation historically, on week number 2, we will start with first generation feminist arts in the United States. First generation is a term used in this course. It's one that's used in the discourse on feminist arts as well, in order to pinpoint a group of artists who really came of age in the early 1960s, but continued to produce through the 60s, into the 70s, and even some of them into the 80s. So you look down here at module number 3, you'll see this. And once again, the module is set up very consistently throughout the quarter in this way. You'll have a Panopto video lecture with a PowerPoint presentation of the topic. That will be taking the place of, for instance, this, what you see now, which is just a view of my desktop with the syllabus pulled up. Instead of that, you'll have a PowerPoint lecture. You'll be asked to participate in a discussion forum after doing the readings and looking at the lecture, and then you'll be assigned a reading summary and reflection with, again, a general prompt saying this is what I'd like from the summary and reflective essays, but here are the specific things I want for this particular one. The readings, again, are listed here, and as I said before, when you plug into each one of the modules, you will get a brief video introduction to what these readings are and what I hope that you'll get from these, and you will also be given a reading guide for the key ideas to cover in these. Week number 3 is first generation feminist arts in the United States again, but we're going to do a case study. We're going to come over to the West Coast and look at what West Coast feminist artists were producing versus that first lecture, which has mainly to do with East Coast United States artists. Same structure, a Panopto video lecture, discussion forum, reading summary, and reflection with the readings listed below. Week number 4 then continues on with feminism. So we are, of course, addressing the question of the way that identity is constructed in visual representations and their contestation by primarily women artists of different generations, different time periods. Second generation really picks up with the late 1970s and the introduction of what is known as post-structuralist thought from some French thinkers that we'll get familiar with. And there's a big difference between this generation of feminist artists and those who came before, in that while the first group of artists, feminist artists that we'll be looking at, tended to think of identity essentially, which is a term that you'll come across when looking at that first group of readings, the second generation of feminist artists were really thinking about identity or questions about what woman is and how women think of themselves and how they are understood in society as a matter of a kind of social set of conventions. Identity then for them is constructed, but constructed in a really complicated way. So we'll go into some of the ways that the artists of this generation drew attention to the way that femininity and woman as a category of identity was constructed, how we can think about constructed identity, and how, in general, they sought to deconstruct identity. Week number 5, so we're 5 weeks into the course, is our first quiz. And I thought it would be useful at this point in the quarter, after going through, feminism, to really spend the entire week recapping what we were talking about and preparing for quiz number 1. So that entire week is really about summarizing and preparing us for quiz number 1. After quiz number 1, we come back to identity, but we start looking at the intersection of different forms of identity. Here, representing race, Black American, U.S. women artists, and feminism. What became really important to a number of Black or African American U.S. women was, the fact that identity is not just something confined to one category or another. It's not just always about, gender. It can also be about race. So if you're a woman who is a woman of color, probably your issues and concerns and the way that you are thought of in the world is not just a matter of your gender, but also your skin pigmentation, your ethnic traditions, and the way that society views those. So we'll be looking at these intersections between race or ethnicity and gender in week number 6, with the same structure again: a Panopto video lecture, a discussion forum, a reading summary, and reflection. I want to pause here. I know that though this is all structured in the same way, that we have these assignments, they could get pretty boring 6 weeks into the quarter if you're doing the same thing. So that while these are listed as discussion forums and reading summaries and reflections, I will be giving you different things to do in these discussion forums and different things to focus on in the summary readings and reflections. Week number 6 then goes the other way around. We haven't talked much about gender in terms of masculinity, and in week number 7 we're going to look at some male artists, Black or African American U.S. male artists, and what they're up to, and we'll also have a quiz during week number 7, as you see here. Week number 8, we will extend this into the question of sexuality with a look at GLBTQ arts, and particularly focusing on a moment in the late 1980s where identity politics and GLBTQ arts come together. Same structure: Panopto video lectures, discussion forum, and reading reflections. Week number 8 is a case study again, the culture wars. In the late 1980s, around the HIV/AIDS epidemic and the politics that surrounded them, the National Endowment for the Arts became a huge subject on a national forum. The National Endowment for the Arts, for those of you who don't know, is it's an organization that basically funds artists through grants for the production of art, as well as the production of catalog essays and exhibitions. And there was a huge national debate about how and what the government should be funding when it came to the arts. And so we will plug into that topical area in week number 9. And then in week number 10, we will be looking at American Indian arts and issues of post-colonialism as it's known. Same thing: Panopto video lecture, discussion forums, reading summary and reflections, and our final quiz of the year. Now, you'll probably note that not every minority culture has been represented here. It would be fantastic if we could go through every single constituency and look at the specifics that various groups confront when it comes to issues of visual representation, but it's not possible in one quarter. So there are many things that are left out of here. By way of explanation, the topics that I've chosen for this course will provide, I believe, a really fertile foundation for you to extend what we have learned in this quarter onto other constituencies, so that if you are interested in, let's say, Asian American culture, or you're interested in the intersection of gay and lesbian plus race, you will have a really good foundation for plugging in and examining those types of questions. So that is an overview of the course. Again, I would like to reiterate this. If you have any questions anywhere along the way, there are 2 places to make those questions known and to get answers for them. The first is, in the first module, you will see a discussion forum labeled a FAQ page, right? It's a series of frequently answered or asked questions. If you have a question that you believe the entire class would benefit from hearing the answer to, that's your place for posting that question. This can be questions about logistics. I'm having problems, using the Panopto viewer. I can't find this or that, or this reading seems to be missing a page, or who knows what the issue might be. But it could also be questions that you have come across in the readings that don't lend themselves to the particular reading or discussion forum that I've posted, but you can post there as well and get an answer to. I will say this, when you have a question about course content, it is always beneficial for you to preface that question with what you know about that content. In other words, instead of just saying, I don't get what is meant by this term, tell me what you understand by the term or by the issue, where you are in your thinking, and then pose your question. This is really beneficial for getting you to think through what you really have questions about, as well as being pretty economical with my answers to those questions. So thank you for viewing this introductory lecture. I'm really excited about this course. It is a topic that's near and dear to me. So on with the game, so to speak. Move on after you've looked at this to posting your first bios in the discussion forum for Module 1, Week 1. Upload a picture of yourself to Canvas if you haven't done that already. That's a useful way for us to identify one another. And then move on to Module number 2 in Week number 1. Thanks. Oh my God.